Hello and welcome to PFT Talk episode 7. So today we've got some news from Samsung, GoPro and of course with WWDC coming up at the end of this week, some news from Apple. Now you may notice Patrick is in a bit of a different setting today.
Yeah, I am sadly otherwise located far away from the comforts of my home in Aberdeen, all the way out in fairly too sunny Florida. So, yeah. A bit of a change, but it's only for 1 week, so hopefully normal service is going to be resumed next week.
Okay, so the first story comes from Samsung. So, as you can see here on screen, Samsung have basically filed some patents for something similar to what we saw from the Ubuntu phone. So what this is basically a shell of a laptop with a slot where you can basically slide in your smartphone, and the smartphone will dual boot, most likely Android and Linux or Tizen and Linux, though you may be able to get Windows on there somehow. And basically it will power a laptop, so the laptop will have a screen, a touchpad and a keyboard in it, and it will basically just use the phone's processor and RAM to make a fully functioning laptop. Now this isn't necessarily a new idea, but it's not something that we've really ever seen before, so it's going to be interesting to see how they can pull this off and if it will actually be usable as a full-time laptop.
Can I stop you right there, because we have seen this exact idea beforehand. It was carried out by Motorola, and it was roughly released around the batch of the first dual-core devices. Now the phone that supported the extension dock was the Motorola Atrix, I believe. Now the idea wasn't as well produced, mainly because the dock was really expensive, but also because the processor was only dual-core, 1 gigahertz, I believe, so it wasn't really high performance. It's not nearly the same performance as your 8-core Samsung Galaxy S6s of today. So obviously this iteration of the same old idea should be a lot better. As to the wider acceptance of it, well, we might have to wait and see.
I think this makes sense, because recently we've been seeing a lot of 8-core kind of chips in smartphones, and really for a smartphone that's fairly useless because you're not doing multi-threaded processes on your smartphone, whereas if you use that processing power for some fully fledged desktop applications, then you kind of begin to justify having those specs in a smartphone.
Yeah, fair enough. But I think the other thing that we need to think about is perhaps this is the time where we finally kind of get rid of the laptop and we kind of more focus on the kind of smartphone and its capabilities, and actually going all the way to maximizing them, because, you know, like you said, 8 cores you don't really need 8 cores in a smartphone, but if you finally got to run some heavier applications like maybe a scaled down version of Photoshop or something like that on your laptop from your phone, I think that would really signify a great step in, you know, the world of tech and how much we've come, that we can finally use our phones to kind of do heavy duty processing.
Yeah. Now I guess this kind of laptop shell could potentially, it'll most likely have some extra storage in it. You may be able to get some extra RAM.
Extra battery, perhaps?
Yeah, so it won't just be a keyboard and a screen. There will be some other things in there to improve the performance, to make it a better desktop experience. But looking at this, it really does seem the kind of perfect device for someone who, for example, travels a lot or doesn't have the biggest of budgets, so couldn't afford a laptop and a phone. So basically you only have to carry one device that can be used for both purposes. I really do think, while it doesn't appeal to everyone, this could certainly be a very high selling product that could interest a lot of people. So next up we have some news from GoPro. So at Code Conference last week, Nick Woodman, the GoPro CEO, did a talk and spoke about a few things that GoPro are planning on. So one of these things was a GoPro drone. So in fact there's pretty much two things he spoke about. So there was GoPro Vr and a GoPro drone. GoPro VR is not going to interest a lot of people. It's basically a custom mount that you can fit, I believe, something like 6 GoPros on, and then with using their software you'll be able to stitch that together to create a VR experience that you could use with the Oculus Rift. Now of course this isn't a very consumer friendly product, as not many people are really wanting to create their own VR content because there really isn't much to do with it unless of course you have your own Oculus Rift or any other VR headset. But the GoPro Drone is going to be appealing to a large market. So recently companies like DJI have been producing their own drones, and while they are fairly high priced, they've been extremely popular, and a lot of people have decided to buy them. Now GoPro, because GoPro cameras are of course used on a lot of these drones, have decided that it would be a good idea to make their own. Now we don't know much about this. We know that it will be priced between $500 and $1,000, which may seem a lot, but it's actually cheaper than a lot of other entry-level drones, and considering this comes from GoPro, I would expect it to be quite a high quality product. This will of course have a mount for your GoPro camera, but apart from that we don't really know much. It's expected to go on sale sometime at the end of this year, and I'm really interested to see what GoPro can do here, as the kind of drone market has become surprisingly big over the last year.
I think that drone should really be popular just because of the GoPro name.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as to what people can do with it, there's literally limitless possibilities, because there's going to be somebody that's going to come up with a new way of using the drone. I think quality-wise, we should expect it to be perhaps a little bit better than its main rivals in the market, mainly because it's GoPro, and GoPro have been known for making tough devices that are really, really difficult to break.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously in terms of crashes and stuff, I would expect it to be fairly durable, and perhaps even slightly better than the DJI alternatives. As to the pricing, I hope it's not too expensive, but then again, if you compare GoPro's pricing to the rest of its rivals in the market, we could see the price being towards the higher end, roughly around £1,000 mark, or maybe slightly higher.
There's really much you can expect to see that'll be different from other drones, because there's not much you can do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
only so much. Yeah, go on.
The fact that the camera is going to be the main part of the drone, and that's just going to be a regular GoPro. So as long as they can make it fly in a stable fashion, I guess reliable battery life and reliable GPS systems, that's really all you need from a drone. There isn't much more they can do. So that's kind of the regular news section over. So now we're going to move on to Apple. Now of course WWDC is coming up at the end of this week, so we thought we'd kind of put a bit of a segment in of what to expect from WWDC this year. So they're obviously going to speak about a lot of things on the software side, because this is of course the developers conference. So we may see some hardware, but don't expect the iPhone 6s, for example. That will most likely come in the fall kind of time, around September. So first up we have a Google Now competitor. Now way back in I believe it was 2011, Apple released Siri, and at that time Siri was way ahead of the game. It was the first kind of personal assistant on the market, and it really offered some stellar features that made it a huge selling point for the iPhone. But since then they've made very few changes to this product, and it's really fallen far behind competition from people like Google with Google Now. And well, it's still ahead of Windows Cortana, but that system could likely overtake it very soon. But it seems that Apple has been working behind the scenes to make some huge improvements to Siri and basically overhaul the whole system. Now, as for what this will entail, basically Siri will be completely changed. So I believe the rumours seem to be saying that Siri will be moved. So before iOS 6 and previous, you had Spotlight search to the left of the home screen, So if you swiped all the way left, you would get to basically a search menu where you could search through apps and things like that. And apparently Siri is going to be placed there for now. And it will give you a lot more information from inside your apps. Basically extremely similar to Google Now. You'll be able to do things like book flights, check the weather, check scores, and it will be able to change settings, just basic things that Siri has been lacking in the past. And this update is, for me, huge, extremely important, because Siri really is lacking behind the competition and losing Apple a lot of sales. If they can make this a more usable system, and it's going to improve the experience for a lot more people.
I mean, in real life, I had a Google Nexus 5 that broke, and I've had to buy an iPhone 4S. So obviously, I've got experience with both Google Now and Siri. Now, what I can say is that Siri is really, really, really miles and miles behind, because with Google Now, there are certain features such as, just having the screen on and being able to say stuff. I mean, I know there's Hey Siri, but it's not nearly as good. Plus, the speech recognition isn't as accurate on Apple as it is on Google.
Yeah.
Plus, I feel like Google Now has more functionalities, more functions that you can actually use every day rather than have Siri. Plus, Siri's kind of personality thing kind of annoys me. I guess it's a personal choice in the end, but there's times where I get really, really annoyed at it, and he just gives me a lot of sass back, which I do not appreciate whatsoever. So
Yeah.
again, I feel like Google Now is the better option right now. It's going to be interesting to see what Apple comes up with for Siri, and obviously what updates they decide to bring to it.
I mean, at the moment, Siri can kind of answer questions, tell you facts. It can open apps, which really doesn't seem too useful, whereas Google Now can get information from those apps and do things with that. So if they basically just open Siri up to developers and let them give information to Siri and let Siri change information from inside apps, for example, doing things like booking tickets or things like that.
Yeah, I guess the problem with that is you're coming back to the age-old Apple problem, is that they really want their devices really locked down, and it takes a few years when the competition gets ahead in a certain area before Apple comes up and opens up their device. It was the same with the widgets, and now it's the same with Siri. So obviously, Apple, in terms of opening up their devices to developers, in terms of SDKs, really lags behind the competition, but hopefully now they're going to play catch up fairly quickly and fairly efficiently, so that hopefully we're going to see an update to Siri, perhaps even by fall this year when they release the new iPhone.
Now, speaking of SDKs, there is supposed to be some big news coming regarding the Apple Watch. So at the moment, if you want to download an app on your Apple Watch, you have to download it via your phone, and the app will run on your phone and simply relay information over that Bluetooth connection, meaning that for third-party apps you cannot use the watch standalone. Now, rumours are suggesting that Apple are to release the Apple Watch SDK at WWDC, and what this will mean is that developers can design apps to run specifically and solely on the Apple Watch. So you will be able to download it from an Apple Watch App Store directly onto the watch itself, meaning that you won't need to be connected to your phone, and B, there will be a lot less lag because you don't have to relay the data over that Bluetooth connection. It will simply use the processor of the watch. So this will be great for things like running apps, so that you don't have to take your phone in your pocket, you can just simply use your watch. And it should really improve the performance of a lot of apps and allow developers to do a lot more. For example, you can't really run games on this because it's simply showing a preview of what is kind of being processed on the phone. So if they release the full SDK, the Apple Watch App Store will improve hugely and make this a much more appealing product.
I think the one thing with Apple Watch is, like you said, moving stuff to the actual watch itself is going to be huge, because there's going to be many benefits to that. You're going to get much better battery life in your phone because you won't be needing to run Bluetooth all the time. Bluetooth is really, really power consuming, and it will, it will have a considerate, huge difference on the battery life of your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's other things, the lag. Personally, I don't have an Apple Watch, so obviously I can't say, but you probably could, about, apps lagging and so on and so forth. But the main thing is that if they do release the SDK, obviously you're going to get the Apple Watch is going to be open to a lot more opportunities. So, we might see games, and we might see other apps that we perhaps didn't expect to see, but will still work perfectly okay on the Apple Watch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, does the Apple Watch have Wi-Fi on it?
It just uses everything through the through the iPhone.
I was going to say if it had Wi-Fi, then perhaps they could do Wi-Fi calling so that you could leave your phone at home, go for a run or whatever, and then if you're within Wi-Fi, you could, take a call or take a text or whatever. But obviously you can because it doesn't have Wi-Fi. But I'm sure there's going to be features developed that we perhaps didn't think of ourselves. And it'll be interesting to see what people do with it, because obviously every time there's a new device released, people take that device and do unexpected things with it that work, So we'll give it time, and I think we'll be pleasantly surprised by the results.
Now, of course, at WWDC, we pretty much always get an update to iOS 8. So 2 years ago, we saw iOS 7, last year we saw iOS 8, and this year, we should fully expect to see iOS 9. Now, I don't expect to see many big changes design-wise. There is rumoured that the font will change slightly, though this really isn't a big deal, and most people won't even notice it. One of the biggest features that Apple will be focusing on is music. So of course, a while back, Apple purchased Beats, and we all kind of know that was because of their streaming service, Beats Music. So Apple kind of tried to launch their own Apple Music service, which never really kicked off. And from what we know, Apple have been working over the past year with Beats to create the Revamped music streaming app, and this will likely come stock with iOS 9. So this will take on people like Spotify, Tidal, other music streaming apps. Personally, I don't see myself using this, especially if you have to pay extra. I'm a Spotify customer at the moment, and I'm happy with what they offer. I don't really see what Apple could do extra. Really, I don't know what they can do to improve on the competition. I guess it would be a kind of cool feature. But they're definitely going to be speaking about this a lot at WWDC, and it's going to be interesting to see what they have to say about this new music app.
I think the only way that, I pay for Spotify just like many other people. Now, I don't really use the actual stock music app on the iPad or my iPhone. Now, the only way that Apple would make me switch from Spotify to their own service is that if they're cheaper, right? Now, that probably wouldn't be cost efficient to them, but even if it was, I don't really see Apple undercutting the competition, because that's not what they do. They offer better quality and better service at a much higher price. Now, them undercutting everybody else would be, a change from what they usually do, and I don't really see them doing it whatsoever. Now, the other thing is, even if it is like maybe £1 or £2 cheaper, attracting people from Spotify will be really, really difficult, because Spotify has grown to be so popular, and
they have the user base.
Yeah, and a lot of people are just going to be, they're just going to stick with Spotify because it's a good service. You pay, what is it, £10 a month? And
yeah.
You just get unlimited songs, and you can play them offline. And it will really take something special from Apple to, get people to change over from Spotify, to change their main habit.
So it's going to be interesting to see what Apple can do, but personally I don't think this is going to be a groundbreaking service, and I don't think it's going to be something that really that many people use. Now, basically our final thing from WWDC is in fact a piece of hardware. Now this is something Apple have neglected for a long, long time, and it is the Apple TV. So this is the TV box that you plug into your TV, and it allows you to stream different things, though really it hasn't been too feature rich in the past, and I think that is the big feature that they need to update, is simply to form more connections with more TV networks to get more shows available. Hopefully you'll be able to stream things like Netflix, Hulu Now, things like that. So this has always been a cheap product from Apple. It's something that a lot of people seem to have, but that not a lot of people seem to use. I can't see them updating too much. They may add in some higher quality streaming, something like that. I don't think they're going to go for 4K content just yet, though that would certainly be a nice feature to see. So it's likely to cost around $30 and will be released sometime in summer, just after WWDC.
I mean, the thing with Apple TV is that it's never been kind of a pinnacle device. It's always been there, but you never really seem to think about it. Now, right now, it's what, $60, $70
Yeah.
for one device. So really, I don't know. It's impossible to see what they're going to do. I mean, Google, for me, revolutionized the streaming kind of market with the Chromecast because it was relatively cheap. It was £30, and you get a ton of content on your TV. Now, there's only so many things that Apple can do to make the Apple TV better. I mean, yes, getting more content providers on board will be one. Perhaps better graphics for the device so that you can eventually run the higher quality content, such as 4K and possibly even 5K in the future. But there's very limited space as to what they can do to up the sales. Perhaps changing the price could be something that they can do, but as far as I'm aware, they chopped the price from $99 to $69 last year. So I mean, there's only so far they can go before the device stops being profitable.
One of the things I think they could do would be if they could get the features of the current Apple TV in the form factor of the Chromecast or Amazon TV streaming stick that you just plug into the back of any HDMI monitor.
Yeah.
I think that would be really good because Chromecast, while it is good, it only lets you stream stuff from another device, whereas the Apple TV has stations on it. It has a full operating system, it has menus, things like that, that the Chromecast simply doesn't have because it's such a basic product.
I guess the other thing is that Apple will also need to look at other devices such as the Nexus Player, the same kind of competitor from Razer and from Amazon, because they also play games on the device, on your TV. Now, as basic as they may be, they still offer a different experience to all the other games consoles, and for many people, that'll be enough to kind of please them that many people don't need a high-end gaming experience on their TV. Now, Apple might be going after that kind of market as well. You never know, they might release a controller with the Apple TV, and you might see an Apple-based competitor to, the likes of the Nexus Player. And obviously with the app catalogue of the App Store, you could really see a lot of games being brought to the big screen, a lot of games that you tend to play on your iPad, on your iPhone, being brought to life on your TV. And I guess it would bring another dimension to the gaming experience and really, really, make the Apple TV a much better all-round device, a much more appealing device to the wider public.
So that's been about it for this week. Now, next week, of course, WWDC, I believe, is on Friday the 8th. So if we keep to our usual streaming schedule of broadcasting on Sunday, then we'll of course have all the news coming straight from WWDC, and make sure to stay tuned on the website because we'll be doing our usual kind of live updates over there. So you kind of know what to expect. There's not going to be anything too big from WWDC, though it's going to definitely be an interesting event that I would recommend you keep up with. So I really hope you enjoyed this episode of PFT Talk. If you did, please give us a follow on Twitch and check over to our YouTube channel. Give us a subscribe, a like and a share over there. Again, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.